Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are across the known world. We're so sorry for the delay in our technology failure today. For those that don't know, I am Countess Beatrice, and tonight we have hosting with us Altani, who's one of our other Lochac roses, an amazing lady. And tonight we are interviewing Countess Lilya. So firstly, we would like to acknowledge the lands of the kingdoms on which we reach out to. Good nobles, we come here together in the spirit of fellowship, deepening of skills, sharing of knowledge, and a shared interest to find the truth through experimental archaeology and historical inquiry. It is in this context that I, Countess Beatrice Maria Malatesta, on behalf of my kingdom, acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands upon which we gather. We recognise their continuing connection to land and culture, and we pay our respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging, and the elders from other communities who may be here today. So thank you so much for joining us, Lilya, amongst our technology challenge, and to you, Altani. It's going to be so much fun. So first off, Lil, how did you start in the SCA?
Oh, I started way back in 1998. My first festival was actually the first festival at Tara. What happened was I had been dating a surfer, as you do in Australia, and I bumped into an old school friend, William Admire, who said to me, my family has joined this SCA group. I think you'd really love it. You can basically dress up like Maid Marian and get drunk. And that's what I did. My second event, my second event, no, my first event, and then I went to Roni, my second event. So, but in between that, I traveled to Europe and saw a load of castles, and it kind of got me all enthusiastic about doing it. So,
How
that's how
did you
I
know
started.
William?
I went to high school with him. I had known him since we were 13.
Wow. I find it quite ironic because we were both at the same primary school as well.
Aha!
Small world.
Small world that we have.
Or at least in Lochac.
Yeah.
Yes. So, what persona do you play?
What percent? I am a time traveler, but my persona is actually 16th century Ottoman. My name, Lilia bint Hazir, was chosen because previous to that I had the name Lilith, so Lilith de Tara, and I had been answering to Lil all the time because in the household I was in there was other Rachels, so I was Rachel and the other Rachel, which isn't much bigger than I am. She's just like that much taller. Is like big Rach. So I chose a name that I would recognize when somebody called it out because I was horrible. Like if I had chosen something other than Lilith or Lil, I would have been in trouble. So Lilith Zetara actually is my first name, but Lilith Lilia bint Hazir is actually the name is registered. Bint means daughter, and Hazir is actually he was an admiral in the Ottoman Navy, and his other name is Barbarossa. So
Nice.
I'm a pirate's daughter, sneakily.
It's kind of appropriate, really.
Yeah.
With going with that persona, this is a bit more of a personal question actually in relation to Lochac. How does it feel being one of the only peers? Well, there's not many of peers that do non-Western European personas. How do you find that?
I actually found it extremely intimidating at first, after I got my peerage. But initially what happened was before Morales Beaumont became the household that it is today, it was known as Saint Sebastian, and Saint Sebastian actually with Gabriel and Constanzia's in tutelage ran a coffee shop at a couple of festivals called the Gates of Salvation, which I worked in as one of their students at the time. And we wore Persian coats as part of and pants as part of the uniform. And it was so comfortable that I basically went, that's it. That's me. And then I became obsessed about it. So what happened was, when you live on the other side of the known world, in Lochac, it was frowned upon. Like, there was a lot of people who just kind of looked down at the fact that you weren't wearing the 8 meters of skirt. Where I was kind of going, practicality of it all is that in the tropics, it's a great thing to wear. And Guthrin took me under her wing as well. So I had the Norse influence from Her Grace, and then my own obsessive compulsive need to get a better look at what Eastern costuming was. So there's actually technically 3 of us now, but there's about, if you encumbersome all of the actual peers of Lochac that are of Eastern persona or have an Eastern influence, there's probably about 7 of us, because we have illuminators and we have Byzantine and we have people like that. It's just that they're not noticeable because everybody expects to see the Renaissance painting, not the actual Eastern illumination kind of come out as the research. So it's intimidating, but it's fun because I get very excited about all of it. So, yeah.
Thank you. I know from watching you from a distance, and when I've seen you, that you taking on that field and that persona has shown some of us, and I know some of the newer players to the society, you've given us hope in a way, to not always be the Western European, and to see something else and explore that. Thank you.
No, you're very welcome. I love talking costuming and what people are finding out about it. So to me, it's a joy when somebody comes up and goes, "Look at my Persian." I go, "Oh, tell me." So.
So I know that you like to time travel and cross cultures, and you've definitely done the Viking, and I have seen you in Venetian, but you were laureled for Mamaluke.
I was laureled for the construction of Mamaluke and 16th century Ottoman undergarments, yes.
Okay,
Which
can you
is
explain where that is?
Because I don't like to say I know it all.
So what location and background is your passion for what you're laureled in?
So I kind of got obsessed about a lot of different things, and I have kept all of my mistakes and my garb specifically, so that when somebody comes up to me and goes, "I've done this wrong," I can go, "I've done worse than that," and I can pull a piece of garb out of a hat that goes like completely horrendous, and I go, "But I learned from this mistake," right? So that's why I do that. But I got a little bit obsessed about the Mamaluke undergarments, because when I looked at them compared to the Persian undergarments and the undershirts of the steppes, I started to kind of realize there was a similarity across all of them. And I wanted to see if I could produce undergarments with just a slight variation on the pattern to actually build from that. So once I got it into my head that I could do that, I started to make oceans of them. And they're probably the most piece of garb that I own is under like shirts and like and now pants. But I kind of worked on extant examples of where placement of embroidery went, and whether I had this theory that edges of fabric was embroidered specifically, and then you would buy the bolt of fabric like a certain width, and then you would make the undershirt so that the fabric, like the embroidery, sat in a certain place, and it did, like it does when you start working out the bits of fabric. So I can talk about it forever because I get so excited about it. But I also threw a lot of ideas at Master Killick over in Perth, and Master Tariq, because they were the two main costumers, people who'd done costuming in Eastern stuff when I started doing it over here. So I would say things to Gillick like, do you think men's pants would have soft booties on them if they were Mongol, or if they were like from the steppes? Because you'd kind of get to your tent and then you'd take off your boot, but you wouldn't want to take off your sock, which would be in your boot. Do you think? And he did a whole lot of, like, he was like, I hate you. And he did a whole lot of research on felted feet attached to shoes and soft leather feet. It's like, because there's a whole lot of children's examples where the pants has beaties. And I was just like, this is something I really need to know. And he just kind of like threw his own research to the side and went, okay, I'll have a go. And so I still throw things at him and he goes, I have so much on my table. Can you not like just that's one of my evil powers, is like I kind of throw suggestions at people and they run with it. And I go, yes, I don't have to do the work.
I'm glad you said it was only one, because we know there are many more.
Yeah, there are many.
So we're going to go on to your reign. So you reigned with Bran in the first half of 2010.
Yes,
it
I
was
did.
that long ago.
And
we've had some interesting conversations around that crown tourney and that, but can you tell us the reactions that you had throughout the tourney?
I don't know. I don't know if I've told this story online, but the night before the tournament, first of all, it was in the Crescent Isles, so it wasn't in Australia, it was in New Zealand. And what happened is we flew over there with a small group of friends, as you do, because you kind of make a thing of it. And we got to site and found out that one of the lovely young ladies that we knew over there had actually been diagnosed with bowel cancer. And it was a bit of a shock to the system. And what happened was her partner at the time was Squire to Vitali, who was in the tournament. And I think in hindsight, his headspace had been shook by that. But Bran managed to decide that that was the perfect time to drink White Russians. It was the night before a crown tournament. And I kind of got the shits, because what happened is the first crown tournament that he actually entered for me. Previously, he had a consort that is a pelican up in my local group, who's a lovely lady, but he had been her consort for a while. And then finally, after a couple of years of being married, he kind of said, look, do you mind? And she went, of course, go fight for your wife. So the first crown tourney for me, he got drunk on White Russians the night before. And I kept saying to him, you're going to be shit tomorrow. And he was like, no, I won't get hit in the head. That's my goal. I don't think I want to. And I went, oh, okay. So it was beautifully done. It was a lovely event, but I sat down and I kind of went, okay, cool. So I know he's getting good, but didn't realize
how good.
How good? Yeah, like, because I'll be honest and go, I didn't really watch a lot of his tournaments. I kind of went, yeah, an event. Ooh, I'll go over here. I'll wave at the right time. I'll make sure I'm in the one corner so that you can salute me, right? Because that's what you did, right? So as he progressed, I was sitting with a small group of friends, and I kind of went, oh, he's doing really well. Like he'll be very proud of himself. And then it got to the point where he was in the final four, and I went, oh, this is actually serious. And then it got to the point where he got through to the final, and I went, oh, okay. We had joked about it. We'd not actually said anything, no plans, nothing. And then I was nicely put next to, at the time, Gabriel and Constantia were on the throne. I was standing next to Constantia, and Yolande was there, and she was on my side, and she was holding my hand. And Katrina, I got her SAA name is wrong, but the lovely Rose from New Zealand, I know her non-SEA name because I've been in contact with her.
Katerina.
She was originally, yeah, she was the actual other No, it wasn't. She was one of the consorts there, and she was holding the hand of Wolfric's partner.
Lochac, yeah.
Lochac, that's right. So what happened was he won, and I can remember Yolande holding and squeezing my hand through the whole finals. And she was cheering him on under her breath. And I was like, okay, all right. So he won, and she kind of nudged me and went, you should go out and greet him. Because I was a little bit like, what have we done? So I wandered out onto the field, and he took his helmet off, and I put my hands on his face, and I must have been in shock because I said to him, what have you done? And he gave me this big shit-eating grin and went, I won! And then he went, your hands are really fucking cold. And it was a hot day, so I had lost. Like, I was in shock and literally like burned his face with my cold hands. And he was just like, yeah, okay. I'm like, yeah. And so it was a bit of a blur after that because I went straight into peerage meetings, like as the princess. Like I got about an hour and a half with the roses, the small group of roses there, and then I went straight into peerage meetings and then to a ball. And it was kind of like this, what the? Like, so we got home. He was pretty drunk by the time we got home because everybody had been celebrating with him. And we were in dorms that had 3 bunks high, like we're 3 bunks high. And he had insisted that we not get a separate bed. So we were in a single bunk together. And it was like Armageddon had hit our room because there was armor everywhere and banners and people's garb. And like, because all the bunks were full. So yeah, it was a very interesting introduction to being royal because the next morning I snuck out and walked the Canterbury Fair site, just going, oh my God, I have no plan. But I was lucky enough that Yolande found me later on and went, you have time to make a plan. Okay.
That actually leads nicely into what we would be asking next. Did you have an origin story and the theatre for your reign that eventuated?
I didn't. I didn't.
Bron's vision?
Bron always had a vision. Because his persona was so rare as well, he wanted a lot of references to early Celtic and early Pictish stuff because he was sick and tired of being called a Celtic person when he was actually a Scottish persona. So he had plans, but I wouldn't give up my Eastern. So it's just like, all right, so I'll do early period for the 3 main events, but the rest of the time I just wear what I want. And he was like, yep, that's fine, but I'm not wearing blue. And that was it. That was the idea. We're like, okay. So we kind of put it out there that people should just do what they wanted to do for a reign. And our step up was amazing because people made a huge effort. So, and the reign was fun. Like, I really think we were the reign that looked like we'd accidentally stolen the crown. Just like sneakily run away with it for 6 months. So, but
Irish influences.
Yeah, so it's Celtic influences and Scottish influences. Yeah. So.
Yeah, there are definitely some very good residual memories from your reign and of that theatre and origin story for it. Number 1 being Bran's porn stash.
Mm-hmm. The period mustache.
The period mustache.
The period hair on his face. And it was awful.
And he hated it.
I did. And I think near the end he hated it too, because I don't think he realized how thick and bushy his facial hair could grow to. So like, I think it was about 2 weeks before festival because we did the early year reign. And I said to him, you have to trim that because you're catching food in it. It's just not going to look good if you're sitting on the throne and there's bits of meat or food, and he was like, yeah, okay. So I had to trim it every now and again just to like to get it to the point where you could see his lips, but it just bulked out like a 70s porn star mustache. It's horrendous. Like it really was, but he was determined that he was going to wear the period facial hair.
And then there was the Malden Vale troops at festival.
Malden Vale troops.
Yes. So there was the I think it was in the heraldic Malay, where they had all cut fake fur moustaches and put them on the front of their helms.
Yeah, the Malden Vale Mo. Yeah, it was awesome.
I sympathize with you with the moustache.
Yeah. But like, I suppose for those people who aren't in Lochac, I don't know Bran. Like he passed away 3 years ago, but he was a very big, very quiet, big personality. So people kind of tended to go, this is an opportunity to give him a little bit of grief, or like to tease him about stuff. And he just loved it. He was like, yep, starting a trend. Just like took it all without ever getting offended. I think the only time he got the shits was when the household drank him out of the shots.
Oh, the Cowboys, yeah.
The Cowboys, yeah.
And the boys drank all the Cowboys. Yeah, and also mispronouncing his name.
Yeah, that was a brandishment offense.
So what was your favorite part of being crowned?
Oh, I don't really know. It's 6 months out of a 22-year hobby, right? 6 to 9 months out of a 22-year hobby. And I think the most enjoyable part is that you get to see the cogs working behind the scenes and how many people are volunteering and are passionate about making a moment for somebody. So for me, a lot of my favorite moments of reigning were moments that made Bran smile, because he was renowned for not smiling. He has a stoic face. So anything that made him feel proud or happy, I hold in a very special place. I got to meet a lot of people and to see how their passion for the game helped evolve it in Lochac. And I mean, people like Damon Dior came out to swear fealty to us, and he hadn't played for years. And there's all these little things like that other people might think are insignificant, but because you know something about that person and how much it means to them and how big a gesture it is, that makes it huge. So they're the moments that I think I liked about being crowned.
So in the vein of that, what was the most memorable award that you would have given out? And
well, there's heaps of awards that you give out, because I loved giving it out. I loved recognizing individuals for what they'd done. And, you know, sometimes you get it wrong. Like Her Grace Leodun has pointed out several times that I gave her AOA for the wrong reason. And it's kind of like, well, that was the information that I was given at the time, and I'm not infallible. So, you know, I apologize. I gave an award to a young man in Tasmania who killed Bran in a tournament when he was king. And I loved it. Bran was not happy that I recognized somebody for killing him. But for me, it was like, he may never kill a king again. This was like, you should have been better. Like, and I just kind of I'm going to do this gesture. And I did that. I got to elevate Gilchrist, which was amazing, who was one of Bran's students. And it was so funny because during that council session, and I'm talking out of council, I know, we kept very quiet through the whole thing because we didn't want people to realize that the candidate was Bran's student, but also we didn't want people to think that we were pushing him because he was going to get there on his own merit. And it had nothing to do with us. We were just lucky enough to be there to ask and to elevate, right? So that was fantastic. We got to ask Stefan to be a knight. So there's all of these people that I kind of go, I was lucky enough, I had nothing to do with their journey, but lucky enough to be there to kind of go, yay, the council agrees. Yes, we're doing it. You know, like in a scenario. So yeah, they're the good parts. So
It is a lovely feeling. I think many of us have experienced that when we've been on the throne.
yep.
So what award would you say is the most memorable that you have received?
Oh, well, England, Theodoric in their first reign gave me a grant level arts and sciences award for my Eastern, and I was wearing wellies and Norse at the time. That was pretty memorable.
The kicking
Like,
of the wellies
right.
to run up in court.
That was pretty memorable. Maybe not for the right reason, but I kind of made me go, all right, from now on, wear Eastern to crown. Like to an event at least one day. I don't know. There's been a couple. When I got my Rowan, I had a moment where I was like, no, I have foot and mouth disease. Why the hell would you give me that? When I got the Lochac Order of Grace, I was just like, as well, because there's moments where you kind of look around the kingdom and you think there's a lot more people who are graceful. Why am I being singled out? It just doesn't seem like the right. I think, I don't know. I would say that I don't really look at my awards or my recognitions or my peerages and kind of go, that's important. I think it's lovely to get recognized, but it's more important to encourage people, and it's more important to ensure that you check in on somebody if they look like they're having a crap time, or you sit down and you have a chat with a friend, or you talk to somebody about how they hem their undergarment for 3 hours in your campsite. And you do that, like, throw the wild suggestions out there because somebody will think it's hilarious, and your foolish behavior will then be accelerated. To me, that's way more important than being recognized. Like, I think I'm one of the few people in Lochac who managed to. I got my royal peerage in 2010. I became a mum in 2011. I got my pelican in 2012. Bran got diagnosed with cancer in 2013, and I got laureled in 2013, and he ran the event that I was actually laureled at. So to me, they came so close together that they weren't specific enough to kind of cut them into individual peerages. They're just a peerage that's spanned over like 4 years. But, to me, that's how I kind of look at them. I don't see one above the other. I kind of look at them all as, it's lovely to be recognized. But because of Bran's diagnosis, that became very unimportant in our lives at the time. It was more about enjoying it and him proving to the world that he was invincible for as long as he could. So, and bringing up a small child through it all. So, yeah. So, it's awesome.
So what do you miss about not being crowned?
Nothing. I don't miss being crowned at all. If it happened again, that would be awesome. It'd be lovely, but it's not. Like I said, it took me a couple of years into Bran's diagnosis and his fight to kind of go, it's 6 months. It's 6 months in a long time in the SCA. And I've done so much silly stuff outside of that 6 months without having the whole kingdom's eyes upon me. Like that I don't miss it. I enjoyed it, but I don't miss it. It's not the be all and end all of who I am. So
you would, if you had the opportunity again, you would reign?
Yes. I would, because I think if you're going to commit to it, then you should commit to it. And as you both know, that sometimes it's hard being the parent of adults en masse in a kingdom where every single person has their own opinion and their own ideas of how the game should be run. But the idea is to steer the ship with the seneschal and the officers, the kingdom officers, and make sure that it glides smoothly through any turmoil, and to constantly evolve with what is required of the mundane world as well as what's required of the SEA world at the same time. So I think I'd do it a little bit differently, because Bran did a lot of the paperwork, which is like nobody really knew. He was
really
fanatical with it, like spreadsheet. It was fantastic. But so I was yeah. But so I was the face and the chatter, and he was and he was the very stoic, everything is in its place and everything runs smoothly kind of person. So
see, you call it stoic face. We just all called it resting bitch face.
The brow kind of wasn't bitchy.
The brown scowl.
Yeah,
it was just Bran, and
yeah,
what we loved him for. He was Bran.
yeah. Because he would see things that nobody else did, and I was just like, "What are you looking at?" And he's like, "I'll be back." He'd go and take a baby from a crying mom and walk away and keep it quiet, and then he'd move things, or he'd help somebody with their armor, and I'd be like, like, making me look bad, babe. And he'd be like, "Well, you could help." So, okay, I'll do that. So,
I think you do your fair share of that, Lilya.
I try. It's a hard legend to live up to.
So what would be your proudest moment across your 22 years in the SCA?
Oh, proudest moment. Well, we were the king and queen who brought in the rule that you could have an event running at the same time as a kingdom event if it was a certain distance away. So that meant that people in New Zealand could have an event if Lochac was having a kingdom event. If Australia was having a kingdom event, New Zealand could actually have an event. So that was pretty good. My students, I'm pretty proud of my students. They're pretty awesome with all their craziness. I don't know. I suppose the proudest moment is I've had a couple. Turning up to your elevation less than a week after Bran died, Beatrice. That was it took a lot, and I did it, and I was grateful. I spoke at Hrothny's elevation a month after he died on his behalf, and I didn't cry. That was good. So
no, everyone else did, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was actually, the strangest thing about that whole night was that when I sat down after speaking, Alfar leaned across and grabbed my belt and dragged me across the floor and just put his arm around me. And I don't think if he knew how much it meant just to have somebody encase me so that I could, if I needed to, fall apart. It was just that one moment of, God, you're great. Thank you. I don't know. Yeah, they would probably the most proud moments is proving to myself that I have the courage to stand up and speak, because I'm not a public speaker, believe it or not, even though they're trying to get me to be a herald. I was terrified being queen because I had to speak in public, and now I can do it at the drop of a hat because it was something that I challenged myself and I got the courage to do. So
I have to say, I think that is one continuous thing that happens with the crowns. There is, there is at least one, if not both, who are not public speakers, who are not confident in standing up. And we always will support each other going, you fake it till you make it, and just project and pretend that you know what you're doing. But ultimately, and it's building that, and I still hate public speaking. I really do. but
Yep.
you stand up and you do it.
It's not just crowns, it's also
Yeah.
the B&Bs all over. We've all seen them step up, being very shy to begin with, and then they find their feet and they do their baronies or local groups, smaller groups, the cantons and the hamlets proud.
Yeah.
It does take time.
Absolutely.
So,
What's next on the agenda for you?
yeah.
Your next area of focus. This is a question from Queen England, who is very curious for the answer to this.
Well, there's been some fighting things happening in your life more recently, hasn't there?
Yeah. So this is her putting me on the spot. So what happened is when I went to Penzig the first time, I bumped into an old friend, Count Veneman, and he hadn't seen me since I was in my early 20s and I was in my early 40s, right? So I kept telling him that I was an older, saggier version of myself. And he kept laughing at me. But we got talking about the fact what I wanted to do in the SEA. And what I wanted to do in the SEA was I wanted to see what it was like to fight. And he said to me, "You'd be great at it." And I went, no, I wouldn't be, because I had been a combat archer. And when I got shot, I got angry and I wanted to chase the other person. Which you're not supposed to do as a combat archer. I'm pretty sure that's in the rules. So, he pointed out the fact that I pretty much lived, because Bran had been knighted by then. And he said, you pretty much live with the equivalent of a black belt in like a martial art, except that we wear white, right? And I went, yeah. And he said, and you've got all these people in your local group that are friends with you both, that are your resource. Why are you not using these? And I was like, because I'm lazy. And so what happened was I came home and I told Brian that I wanted to fight and that I was going to fight. And he went, okay. And he bought me a shield. No, he first of all handed me his shield. And I don't know if anybody knows my boy's weapons, but they're period weight. And he was 5'10", 5'11", and I'm 5'2", right? So, and it was like, yeah, 5'2". So I was like, no, this is way too heavy. I want a smaller shield. And he was like, no. And I went, no. So we had a 3-month argument about a shield weight and shields. And he finally bought me a shield on the internet and then handed it to me and went, how's that? And I went, perfect. This is just what I wanted. I had wrong Veneman by this stage to bitch about my husband being overprotective. And he basically told me, after I trained with it a couple of times, that it was only 500 grams lighter than a period weight shield. Because, and I was furious. I was so angry that he'd gone around me. But then what happened was Veneman explained to me about the ratio of a hit and how the weight of the shield actually disperses it and stuff like that. So what's happened is, over the last couple of years, my Laurel brain has clicked in. And I've actually started researching about armor, and I've researched about footwork, and I'm doing a little bit of training, one-on-one training with 1 or 2 people. And what's happened is I'm actually close to finalizing my kit and getting on a tournament field with the full knowledge that I'm 46, a tiny female. I am not fit, but I want to have a go. And if I try it for 6 months and I hate it, then at least I know I made my own kit with the help of friends and mentors, that I have trained with friends and mentors, and that I have a better understanding of what I'm watching on a tournament field and on a war field. And being female, there's that whole fight or flight thing that happens, and I don't want to be hit and I'm going to cry. And that plays in the back of my mind. And I kind of think, you know what, if I can stand up in front of the kingdom a month after my husband passes away and speak on his behalf, nobody's going to care if I cry when I come off my first tournament field because my friend smacked me with a stick. So I'm just building myself up to get over it. so it's been a slow progress.
Would you go back to archery?
I would love to go back to archery. I really would. I liked combat archery, not target archery, which is part of the reason why I stopped doing it, because I got very aggressive, like I said, on the warfield. That, and I pissed off a really good archer in Lochac at the time who kept shooting me in the inner thigh.
Oh, wow.
And I can't, because, I admit I'm a mouthy person. So, yeah. So I kind of got to the point where I knew I was going to be black and blue every time I got off a warfield after fighting opposite him. And I kind of went, that's it. I'm not enjoying it. I need a break. And I just never went back to it where I should have. So that's all right, though.
Maybe next festival.
Maybe. That'll be kind of cool. I have
practicing. You've got a student that can help you with it.
I have several students that can help me with it. Let's see. Dallin fights.
No, I was thinking Katie is archer.
Yeah, Katie's an archer. Golgo fights. Thorva fights. So there's a couple of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we do have one last question to ask you. And you know this question, it's the one that we generally ask at the end of every interview. And that is, what is your favorite campfire story to tell?
I have so many stories that it is really hard to choose one.
And remember, if you tell one about us, then we're going to tell one about you.
I'm just trying to think. What ones are there that I could tell?
Oh, so many.
There is so many. I could do the accidental date. That was kind of funny.
Sure.
Right. So I come across as being very gregarious and outward, but I'm actually quite shy and quite naive at times, believe it or not. Like, I'm one of those oblivious people that will walk into a room and I will say something and it has a double entendre and people piss themselves and I go, I don't understand. And then I go, oh, I'm sorry. And then I can walk into a room and mean the double entendre and nobody gets it, right? So I am awkward beyond belief, right? So I went to Penzig, and the 2 times that I've been to Penzig, my husband encouraged me to go on my own because both times we had gone through a huge flurry of chemo and radiation therapy. And he said to me, you are breaking and you need to regenerate and you need to not be near me and the kid so that you don't have to worry about us and you can just go and have some fun, right? Now, it doesn't mean we had an open relationship at all because we didn't. Not who we are, not casting dispersions on people who do, but that's not how our relationship worked, right? So I went to Penzig and I decided that I was going to buy myself some boots that I could fight in because this is how long I've been aiming to fight. And I went down to the lovely gentleman who does all the boots and the shoes, and I found a nice pair of boots which are late period and they turn down, right? So they're very sexy. And I kind of went off and hummed and hawed about the price. Then I went back to the campsite, right? And about 2 or 3 hours later, I kind of went back down and brought Bonnie with me, right? Like Isabella, who's my sister-in-law. I went, what do you think? And she was like, they're pretty good. And, I don't think Brown would care if you spent that much money on a pair of boots because, they're boots, right? And I was like, yeah, I can't. And I hummed and hawed about it because another 2 weeks at Penzig and, in LA. So I kind of went back to the campsite and my ex-peer was there and I said, Akasha, I need your help. I can't buy them on my own. You have to come with me. And she was like, yeah, no problem. Come with me. And I'll come with you. So we went down to Merchant's Row and I went into the boot shop and I caught the eye of the young man who'd served me a couple of times beforehand. And he said, are you back for the boots? And I went, yes, I am. And he went, perfect. So I paid for the boots. And as I was walking out with boots in hand, kind of relieved that I'd made a huge decision about a massive purchase, he tapped me on the shoulder and said, excuse me, before you go, I was just wondering if you would like to have a drink. And I went, yeah, sure, not a problem. I walked out the door of the tent, right, with Akasha coming up behind me. And we probably walked about 1.5 meters. And she went, Lil. And I went, yep. And she went, yeah, no, you just agreed to a date, right? And I went, no, I didn't. I agreed to having a drink with him, like, because, that's what you do. You drink with people at Penzic. She went, I don't think you listened to what he said. And I went, yeah, no, he said this. And I exactly said the words. She's like, okay. So by the time we got back to the campsite, the Lochac campsite, the penny had dropped and I realized I'd agreed to having a date with somebody. Right? And I had a complete moment where I reverted back into that little girl going, oh my God, what have I done? I've put myself in this situation. This is going to be embarrassing for him and me. This is ridiculous. And I rang Bran in the middle of the night. Like, so it was the middle of the day. And I rang Bran and I told him that I'd agreed to a date with a very young, attractive man. And he said to me, how are you going to do with that? And that was all he said. Like, it was just this like level of, well, I'm not there to save you. Right. So I had a moment where I was like, oh God, oh God, oh God. And I paced the campsite, and obviously my pacing attracted attention because suddenly I had Lochswan Squires, His Majesty Hroff at the time are all like watching me, venoming, and they're like, what is going on? Like, I'd Gall there, who's one of my students, and he's a big burly solid like boy who used to work as a bouncer, right? So he was like, do you want me to talk to him? Like, is this going to be like, no, I have to do this. I have to, like, if I agree to it, I have to admit that, right, I'm going to do this. So after a couple of hours of me pacing and building myself into a tight little knot, right, I finally plucked up enough courage and I went down to speak to him, and I brought Bonnie with me for moral support. Isabel, and he was lovely about it. And I said, look, I am so sorry. I misunderstood. And he went, I kind of thought you did because you were a bit flippant about it. And I know you have a wedding ring on. Right? So I kind of went, I am so sorry. I had a chat and I said, you're quite welcome to have a beer up in Lochac later on with me if you want, though, but not a date. Right? And he said, okay, well, when I'm finished my shift, I'll come up and I'll have a drink. And I went, perfect. So he came up and he sat with me out the front of the campsite in the lovely chairs near the picnic table. And he said to me while we were drinking, and he was charming, absolutely a lovely man, charming. And he said to me, so is that your security detail? And I went, pardon? And he said, turn around. And I've turned around and there was 4, maybe 5 Lochac men, camp men, sitting directly behind us at the picnic table. And I went, no, that's just unfortunate seating. And he went, okay, so where is your sister-in-law? And I went, and I kind of looked around, and Bonnie's about 2-3 meters in front of us on the grass, staring directly at him, by the way, with this look on her face. And I said, there she is. And he said, so where is your security detail? To which I've gone, da. And Gall, my lovely student, was standing at the gate of Lochac with his arms folded like a security officer. And I waved at him and he waved back in the only security, I'm watching. And I went, that's my security officer. He just went, you must be pretty important. And I went, no, I think they think I am, but I'm not. But he was lovely, and I have become his friend on Facebook, and he is charming. But he did say to me, you know, there are times where I must remember that married women just are oblivious to the fact that they're still maybe attracted to other people. Because I was just like, I'm so dumb. Like, but yes, that's one of my favorite stories because it just proves you can turn a bad situation into a positive one. And that the SCA is always going to have people there to protect you no matter how stupid you are.
Absolutely. It's the family thing that happens. You know, that's how we work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, if you've got somebody new there, then they have to be acceptable to all of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very protective. I noticed that myself at Pensick.
Yeah.
Where are you going? For a walk? I'll come with you.
No, don't need to. Don't need to. I'm coming.
Especially when you're queen.
Well, that didn't happen to me, but it would have happened to you.
Well, thank you so much, Lil. We are at the end of our hour. That was awesome, and I'm hoping, like, I know that we get to know a little bit more about you, and so does the wider populace. And thank you so much, Altani, for joining us and being a co-host tonight.
Welcome.
And we look forward to for you to join us in more interviews at a later time.
Might have to rotate the roses.
Yeah.
Lil, I think you inspire many of us. With your generosity, the way you care for people, and how you come across within the society with research and everything that you do. You are definitely an inspiration to many of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's nice to hear. But, you know, I'm just a big dag as well.
Yeah, but you're not intimidating. Definitely not intimidating.
We love you for who you are.
No. Not intimidating.
Oh, thank you very much, ladies. And we look forward to seeing many of you soon. We have another interview, a very short interview coming up after this with Master Magnus, who is our man behind the scenes. And we will catch up with you then. Bye.
Bye.